Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining Practical Tips to Buying a Home, set by Red's Title. Today we're going to go through the very basics of what you need to know if you're looking to buy a home, from the initial application to the initial closing. This is going to cover all parts of the process, from dealing with loan officers to attorneys to realtors to actually closing on a home. My name is Jim Paolino. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at Red's Title. Also on the call today, we have Brooke Solomon, a former loan officer and licensed closer, as well as Jen Daniel Esquire, a real estate attorney with over a decade of experience in the title industry. So we're going to get started on the process now. When you're looking to buy a home, regardless of the area, we're going to try to keep this pretty generic. It's important to set a budget and stick to it. And what I mean by sticking a budget is to look at what you can afford to pay on a monthly basis. So if you're renting, figure out what that rent payment would be put towards a mortgage. For example, if it was $2,000, if that's the amount of payment that you can make every month, that's going to determine the amount of a loan that you would be able to eventually get. One of the things that's also important when you're looking at the monthly payment is realizing that you're not just going to be paying for the mortgage. There's going to be homeowners fees. There's going to be real estate taxes. There's going to be other fees that go into the monthly payment. So it's important to take those into account and also to account for the upfront costs between the down payment and the actual closing on a home. The next thing that you want to do is to check your credit score. This is going to affect your mortgage approval. There are a lot of things that would go into affecting your credit score that you have to be cognizant of, from applying for a new job, taking a new job, getting more credit cards, getting additional lines of credit. So that's something to pay attention to when you're starting to go through the home buying process. So then at this point, you would go to a loan officer, a mortgage broker to get pre-approved. This is the point I'm going to pass it to Brooke, who's been on that side of the business before and can give you some tips on how to handle that.
Great. Thank you, Jim. With getting pre-approved, you want to find a loan officer that you're comfortable with. And what you'll need to do is have at least 2 months bank statements, pay stubs, and 2 years of tax returns that they'll ask you for. And they'll be able to go through everything with your W-2s, tax returns, and pay stubs to see what you can get pre-approved at. And they'll be able to tell you what your monthly payments will be and what the highest amount of a home purchase that you would be able to do. When going on to next slide for financing, you can arrange financing if you wanted to go to different lenders, you could do that and shop and see, but I would stick with one to get pre-approved because you don't want to have your credit pulled too many times, because sometimes that can affect your credit scores, as Jim talked about before with your credit scores. You want to know what type of different loans they'll be able to go through with you. There's FHA, there's conventional. You can do a first and a second sometimes for your down payment to minimize your down payment and reduce the mortgage insurance. That can help also.
Brooke, one question on this.
Yep.
If you're a first-time home buyer, yes, what advantages would you have, and depending on the state and depending on different lenders that you're working with?
There's different programs that different lenders will work with. For Pennsylvania, I know that there's different grants that come through with like PHFA and different. Some lenders offer FHA loans, some don't do FHA loans. So every lender is kind of different in what they can offer.
Mm-hmm.
So that would also, come into play when you're choosing a lender.
Perfect. And just to clarify for people on the call, what would an FHA loan be?
Right now, they are, I believe it's 3.5% down or 3% down. So it's a reduced down payment that you would need to have in it. Mm-hmm. And then they have monthly, what they call mortgage insurance, which if you don't put 20% down on the loan, you will have to pay mortgage insurance or PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, which you would have on a conventional loan as well.
Perfect. And FHA is the Federal Housing Administration, so that would be basically a program that's out there to help first-time home buyers buy homes. So if that applies to you, definitely something to look into. So Brooke, the next step then after that pre-approval?
Right. So then you really want to, we went over financing a little bit. So like I said, with your second mortgage, you could do that. And then some states require you to have an attorney. So you want to find a real estate attorney that can also represent you at the closing. Okay. Some states require it, some don't. It's, you know, it could be a comfort level. If the state doesn't require it, you will have to hire what we call a title agent, title company, and they will be able to go over all the closing docs, which we'll go over later on. The next thing would be when you start to look is to start to look for the neighborhood that you want to be at. So you want to find an area that you're familiar with maybe and start there and make sure that the schools are good and it has the town has everything that you want. Okay, so you want to also look at the taxes because the taxes will play into effect on your monthly payments. So even though you're going to be pre-approved to buy a house, you know, just say for $300,000, if the taxes are much higher, that's going to play into account what your monthly fees are going to be. Okay. And then your next step would be to hire a realtor. So once you figure out what the area that you want to be in, I would recommend you could, you know, some options. I know when we purchased, we drove around and looked at some signs that were out for realtors, or since you've already gotten pre-approved, you should have already gotten pre-approved. Sometimes the loan officer can refer or recommend some realtors to call, and they would be able to finalize a certain area and send you all different homes within your price range. They would be able to, and they would negotiate all the offers that you would put in once you found a home that you liked.
Okay. So now we're going to pass it over to Jen. At this point, you would have found a home, put in an offer, and that's when you're going to be starting to deal with an attorney.
Yes, thank you, Jim. So the first contract that you're going to enter into is your offer to purchase, and at this point you typically will put down $1,000 and you'll submit your offer. If that is accepted from the seller, they will sign it and send it back to you, and at that point you're in a binding contract with the seller. So what that means is if you back away at that point, that you will lose your deposit. So it is important to remember that the offer is binding. After the offer to purchase, the next step is the purchase and sale agreement. That will go over a little bit more detail on the next slide. That is also a contract, and it is binding, and there are important dates you have to look out for on that as well. So it's at this point that you're going to select an attorney. If you're going to choose to work with an attorney, you'd want to go ahead and reach out to them at this point because they're going to work with you through the purchase and sale agreement, which, again, you can switch to the next slide. So navigating through your purchase and sale agreement, this is a lengthy contract. It does have some legal language in there, which is why at this point it's a good idea to get in contact with your attorney because they can help you read through it, explain the terms to you. And in some states, like Massachusetts, they'll actually negotiate the purchase and sale agreement on your behalf with the seller just to make sure everything is what you have understood the agreement to be and that you're getting everything that you are expecting with the agreement. And also, they're going to track your dates for you. The first important date in that is the mortgage contingency clause. That is a date that's put in the agreement, and what that means is by that date you want to make sure that you have loan commitment with your lender, because if your loan gets denied after that date, you do lose your deposit. So that's why you want to make sure you mark that date down on your calendar and track that. That date can be extended if needed. What you would do is you'd reach out to your lender on that date to see if they have loan commitment. If they don't, if they need some more time, that is okay. You can request an extension of that date with the seller. Another date you want to look out for is your home inspection date. It's always recommended that you do get a home inspection to make sure there's nothing seriously wrong with the home structural-wise. So on the next slide, it does show you some tips for getting a home inspector. The seller might recommend a home inspector. That's not something that we would ever recommend you do. You should get your own licensed home inspector just to make sure that your best interest is protected with them. If anything major comes up in your inspection report, you could either work with your realtor or your attorney to go through that. Some negotiation can be done with the seller, either regarding agreeing to repairs being done or amending the purchase price as a reduction for any items that you're not acceptable with.
And Jen, what type of issues would come up in the home inspection that would kind of throw a wrench in the process?
It can be a number of things structurally wise. I mean, some major ones, obviously, if they're going to check the boiler, they're going to check the structure of the house. If they see any cracks or anything like that, they'll check the foundation. Foundation issues can be a costly repair. They're going to check the roof. A roof repair can also be very costly. So things like that. Things that aren't covered by the inspection are something like a septic. If the property is septic, that's something else you'd want to make sure. In the state of Massachusetts, seller does have to provide a Title V, but in other states that's not required. So if the property is serviced by a septic, that is something you want to take into account because a septic issue could be very costly as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, some other requirements. Different states have different requirements. A plot plan, that's something that's done in the state of Massachusetts to make sure it's not a full survey. It's just a plot plan that shows the outline of the home, and that makes sure what we're looking for when we get that in is to make sure there's no encroachments. If the shed is encroaching on the neighbor's yard or if the property is actually over the boundary line, that's something we want to make sure we take care of prior to closing, because once you close, any issues with that you do take on yourself. Other states don't require plot plans, but some actually do require actually a full survey, which is a little costly, but again, the benefit you get versus what the potential issues that could arise if you do have an encroachment issue, it's definitely worth it. So even if you're in a state where a survey isn't required, it might be something that you want to look into just to make sure you don't have any boundary issues when you purchase the home. Municipal lien certificate, that's in Massachusetts, those are always ordered on purchases to make sure that the taxes are all taken care of. You don't want to buy a property that has a tax lien on it or any delinquent taxes. So we always order that to make sure at the closing taxes are paid up to date. We also look out for if there are any water sewer liens with the town, we make sure those are covered and paid by the seller at closing. Other than that, homeowners insurance, you want to make sure prior to closing that you do have homeowners insurance in place. The lender is going to require that you do that. Okay, so again, for your homeowners insurance, you're going to have to reach out to your homeowners insurance company and request a declaration that to be sent to your closing attorney. The lender is going to require to see that a couple weeks prior to closing, so you want to make sure once you've signed the purchase and sale agreement that you do get in touch with your insurance agent. A lot of times with insurance companies, you can get discounts. If you already have your car insurance, you might be able to get a nice bundle discount. And
now at this point,
yep.
Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say also, for the title search, your attorney or your closing company is going to perform a title search. Depending on the state, it determines the number of years we have to go back, but the title company that you're working with or the attorney is going to make sure that the title to your home is free and clear, so you don't have any liens or any title issues once you take on the home.
And just to clarify, this basically protects your ability to take a loan against the property, as well as protects your ability to eventually then sell that property.
Yes.
So that is what title insurance does, as you can see on this slide, and it protects your ability to own the property, the physical land itself. And it's something that's done up front in the process, something that's going to be required by the bank, and very important in making sure that you're buying the property from someone who can actually owns it and can actually sell it. And then ultimately, there are no kind of liens against the property, loans against the property, kind of weird issues on the property, land, things of that nature. Is there anything that I'm missing there, John?
Nope. The only thing, so with that, there's two types of title insurance at closing. You have the lender title insurance, which covers the lender's interest in the property. You also can get an owner's title insurance policy. Now, that's optional, but we always highly recommend that you do purchase the owner's title insurance because it protects you. It's a one-time charge, and the protection stays on until you sell. So if a title issue does come up when you're going to sell, your title insurance is going to help you get that, not only get that cleared, but also keep your closing on track to close on time.
Great. Thank you. And now Brooke's going to take us through the end here of what happens around the closing and the actual documents and process.
Yes. Once everything is cleared and we get the okay from the bank for closing, what we do is we send out what we call a closing disclosure, or somebody might call it a CD. That will go over all your closing costs and your fees, and on that will state everything basically you need to know about your loan. So we'll have your loan amount, your interest rate, your monthly payment, your taxes, your insurance, and all your final costs. So once you approve, you see that at least 3 days before, then they'll have you sign that, and that will go over back to the lender so that they know everything's clear to close. Then what we do is we set up the closing date with everybody on all parties, and you'll all meet together. It's usually about an hour, and they will go over your note, your mortgage, and basically with the note, it's your promise to pay. So you're going to sign that stating that you understand the loan and what your monthly fee will be for your what we call principal and interest. So that's not included with your tax and insurance, but on your closing disclosure it would have everything. And then the mortgage and all the other documents would be signed at the same time. Once everything is signed, we do go ahead and record the mortgage for the bank with the county, as well as a new deed that shows that the sellers did sign it over to you, and then you would get copies of everything. When you get to closing, though, you do need to have ID. So you would need to have either a driver's license, passport, or state ID to bring with you so that they can identify that you are who you say you are, as well as certified funds for any money that was being brought to settlement. So your down payment and any closing costs that you weren't including in your loan amount. And then the attorney or paralegal would be able to go over all that with you at the table and they'll go over the money ahead of time so you knew what you would need to bring to the table. And then at the table, everybody would go over, the notary or attorney would go over with you and explain all the papers.
And Brooke, can you just talk about the importance of making sure you're confirming any payment or bank account information with the person you've been talking to the whole time?
Yes. So unfortunately, this time there's been a lot of fraud and hacking, computer hacking. So it's very important if for any reason anybody gives you wiring instructions or asks you for wiring instructions, that you confirm it over the phone with them, not just an email. So what we do typically is, if we're going to wire funds, we will need the account number to have the people on the account that's taking the loan out, and we would call and confirm all the information. So your routing number, your name, the address that's on the account. Nothing would be done strictly through email because of unfortunately, all the hacking that's been going on emails. So it's very important to never give. Yeah, it's important not to give that information out really strictly over the email as well.
Mm-hmm. And if that brings you to the closing. Congratulations on your new home. If you ever have any questions throughout the process, we're a resource throughout from the beginning to the very end. Feel free to reach out to us if there's any way that we can actually help you. I'd like to thank Brooke and Jen for taking the time to get on this call as well. So good luck to everyone, and please let us know if any questions arise.
Great, thank you.